Hey guys, so today's a big day on the farm. What we're doing today is we're literally turning over completely two 72 by 30 high tunnels. Throughout the week we've been ripping out and clearing out the winter production crops that were in here. It's really difficult when you're doing winter and summer crops, is because you really want to push both of them as far as you can. This isn't best practice to turn these beds over this quickly, but with the limited staff we have this time of year and the crops that are still growing and harvestable this time of year, we just push it as close as we can. And this year we pushed it to like 2 days before we got to plant. So yesterday was really crazy of ripping out the rest of the greens in a lot of these beds. Unfortunately, we're dealing with individual beds and we have walkways, so we can't really get heavy tillage equipment in here to turn up the material and let it decompose. So it's a lot of hand work to rip all the plants directly out of the ground. So we're dealing with what you can see here is just kind of a bare, crappy looking bed, but we're gonna make it look really pretty soon. So that was step number one, is ripping everything out of the bed so we have something pliable to work with. Number two is, because we're a conventional IPM farm, we're using regular fertilizers for a lot of it, but it's all specifically based on the crop we're growing. So high tunnel tomatoes and high tunnel peppers are very fertilizer specific, based on one, your soil test, and two, the crop demand, because you're going to get a lot more growth and you're going to get a longer season out of a high tunnel than you would in the field. So you got to account for that extra nutrient need. And so what we do is we do two things. We do that in a pre-plant application of fertilizer, and we do that in a drip fertigation system throughout the growth of the plant. So what we did is we took that fertilizer, or that nutrient need I should say, for the whole season, and we divided that in half. And so we're going to give half of it up front before we plant the crop, and then we're going to do the other half with fertilizing or fertigation through drip irrigation for the rest of the season. So right now what we're doing is I'm mixing up some blends of fertilizer that we're going to need for the high tunnel. These are just some regular bag mixes, but again, they're focused on an actual specific blend I need. So I took a couple different bag mixes and I mixed them together to get the nutrient, the NPK that I'm looking for each high tunnel. Fortunately, each tunnel is actually pretty similar, and because they're both solanaceous crops, the fertilizer needs were pretty similar. So we're just doing one mix for both tunnels, and if we need to adjust tunnel to tunnel throughout the season, we can do that through the drip. So what we're going to do now is I've got just over 200 pounds of fertilizer in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to spread that over 8 beds in this tunnel, and we're going to spread that over 8 beds in the other tunnel. So the one thing you got to be really careful with high tunnel production is you got to be careful with the amount of fertilizer you're putting into the tunnel at one given time. One, dealing with burning issues. Two, dealing with salt buildup in the soil. A lot of synthetic fertilizers and other fertilizers have a lot of salt in them, and that can build up on the top of your soil and really actually harm a crop. So we got to be mindful of that. So really strategic planning here, really precise measurements to make sure we don't do all of that, or we prevent any of that, I should say. So let's get to it. We're going to fertilize each bed. It's about 13 pounds of fertilizer per bed, so we're just going to sprinkle that with our handy dandy bucket here. And I used to spread fertilizer by hand in multiple places, so I'm pretty good at doing that, getting a pretty even band across each bed. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in and rototill a good 6 to 8 inches down to, one, mix the fertilizer in the soil and not just leaving it on the top, and two, we're going to break up a lot of the residue that you can still see is on the surface here. We're putting transplants in the ground, so I'm not too worried about the heavy residue on here. Again, you know, also it's going to be decent organic matter once it breaks down and gets into the soil. I wish we could put all of it back into the soil, but it's just not feasible with the timing and the space we're dealing with. So there's a 2-step there. Our 3rd step is we're going to bring in drip tape into these beds. We're going to get them all lined up. Each bed gets 2 to 3 rows of drip tape. We're going to get them centralized in the bed. We're going to get them hooked up, and we're going to turn that water on, because these high tunnels haven't really been thoroughly irrigated in weeks. So the soil is really dry in here, and we need to really saturate that soil to help get that fertilizer mobilized and moving, and give a nice moist environment for our plants tomorrow to go into. So let's get to it.